Here we are on the front of our Dutchman Astoria 298 BH fifth wheel. We're going to do a technical walkthrough like your technician did on the date of delivery, going through some of the components on your unit. Your brand may differ with some of the components. If you want more information on those brands or the brands that we have here, there's a much deeper dive into those components in our YouTube channel under the playlist Haps Helpful Hacks. Now we're going to start in the front up here. We have our 7-way plug, which transfers all of our lights from our towing vehicle to the trailer. It also has a battery charge line to help keep your battery charged while you're traveling down the road. Next, we have our 12-volt breakaway. This breakaway is a safety switch. If anything were to happen to your fifth wheel hitch and the trailer becomes disconnected from your truck, this pin should pull out and it will activate the brakes on the fifth wheel to slow it down or stop it in the event that it comes disconnected. This loop right here needs to connect somewhere on the rails or one of the tie downs in the bed of the truck. That way, if the hitch breaks off, this doesn't go with it. The idea is for this to pull out and activate the brakes. We also need to make sure that we have a good 12-volt battery in order for that power to be able to be transferred to the brakes. We also want to ensure that this pin is installed all the way into this box whenever we're traveling, otherwise those brakes would be active. We do have LED lights on the front cap of our unit activated by our switch to the left of our front compartment. We'll also find below that front cap light switch our landing gear controls. This is to retract and extend those front landing gears. We want to make sure that we leave 5 to 6 holes down on those legs whenever we disconnect. If we don't, we're not going to leave enough stroke or length on that jack in order to level out our unit. Now when we level out our unit, we want to disconnect from our vehicle, but before we do, we level our unit left to right by using the stacker blocks under our tires based on how uneven our pad is. We want to put those stacker blocks under those tires to level it out left to right. And then we'll use our landing gears to level the unit from front to back. We do have stabilizers in the back that we'll go over in a little while, but those are just stabilizers, not levelers. We'll get more information on that when we hit that in the rear. For those landing gears, this is the motor that runs it. We have a tube that connects the 2 landing gears together. There's a hole on the other side through our propane tank. We would remove that propane tank and we'd put the override system in there, which is just a post to be able to crank it. And this will allow us to manually run these jacks in the event that our system does not operate for whatever reason. There is an inline fuse for our system we can find right here in that bundle of wires. Also in our front compartment, we have our storage for our battery. We also have our battery disconnect. This will disconnect our battery from our system and save the battery charge for the next time we need it. Now, if we are storing our unit plugged in or we're camping, whatever, we want that disconnect on. If we are storing our unit not plugged in, we want to turn that disconnect off. That way our 12-volt components don't drain our battery. Now you do have a solar system on here. That solar system is going to charge that battery even when your disconnect is off. So you can go ahead and turn it off, and if you have sunlight, you're storing it outside, whatever, those solar panels will trickle charge this battery. Over here we also have our Lippert tire link system. This is an upgradable feature, already pre-wired. We would buy the sensors for the tires and also the module to be able to connect it to our monitor and be able to monitor that system while we're traveling down the road. In our front storage compartments on each side, we'll find our propane tanks. We'll notice on one side or the other, we have a dual propane regulator. This dual propane regulator, you'll select one side or the other as far as which tank you're pulling from. When that tank runs dry, it will automatically swap over to the other tank. It will also indicate on the dial, whether it's green or red, indicate whether or not that tank still has any LP left in the system. If it's red, obviously it is empty. You can turn that dial to the other tank and it will give you the gauge on that one, and you will need to refill that empty one. Over here we have our front pass-through bay right here and our control center for our water and our black tank valves. We'll go over that now. Here in that control center, we do have a motion sensor light. We can turn it to 1, and that will have that motion sensor activate. When we open that compartment door, it will automatically turn on. When we close it and it senses no motion, it will turn off. And number 2, we'll keep it on all the time. Here we have our coax plate. One is for our cable going into our unit will hook up our coax to our TV and scan for channels, and our other one is going to be for satellite. We can hook an external satellite up to it, and then from here hook it to our receiver on the inside, then an HDMI cable to our TV, and have Dish Network or DirecTV. Here we have a quick disconnect port. This quick disconnect port is for our coiled hoses. We'll take that male end, stick it into our female locking piece right here, and then we can put a spray port on there to release it, click it back, and pull it out. This is our water heater bypass valve. This valve is for winterization. We would turn that to bypass our water heater system if we want to put antifreeze in our lines. Here we have our city water connection. Our city water connection is for our city water. If we have water at the campground where we're hooked up, we run that water through the bottom of here into here, and this will supply water to all our fittings in our unit. To the right of it is our black tank flush. Our black tank flush is to flush out that black tank, which is our sewage system. We'll go over that in just a second as we move down to the other valves. So here we have our black tank and our gray tank. Our black tank is our toilet sewage, anything that goes down the toilet. Our gray tank is our showers and sinks and anything like that in our unit. Our gray tank, as long as we have that sewage hose hooked up to a port at the campground, we can leave our gray tank open all the time and allow that water to drain straight out of that tank. Of course, if we're dry camping, we don't have that hookup, we want to leave that valve closed. Our black tank, however, we want to leave it closed all the time unless we're emptying our tank out. We would go ahead, pull that valve, flush out our system, let it all drain out, then we hook a water hose up to our black tank, and there is a spray port inside that tank that this goes to, and it will help flush out that tank. Now once we are done, we want to close this black tank valve off and put a little bit of water in there, 2 to 3 gallons. That way anything that's in that tank doesn't solidify. That water can slosh around in there and help clean it out. And we can do that through here, or we can just go straight to our toilet and push the valve there for a little while until it fills up with a little bit of water. Like I said, 2 to 3 gallons is enough. You don't want to leave it empty. The main thing behind keeping this valve closed during camping trips and all the time, unless you're emptying out your unit, is if there are any components in there that dry up, toilet paper, sewage, anything like that, it can't be cleaned out once it's dried up. So that's going to cause what's called dry tank, and it's going to ruin that tank and it will have to be replaced. So do not leave this valve open unless you are flushing out your system or draining it. Keep it closed while you're camping. Down here you'll see this black cover right here comes off. We can run all of our water hoses and coax cables through here to do the hookup. So down below our furnace we can see this is where we're going to hook up that sewage hose to our port at the campground. Down here we also have a red and blue line sticking out of the bottom right next to each other. These are our low point drains. Our low point drains are used when we're winterizing our unit to go ahead and get all the water out of our system. We'll open those up, drain the water out, then close them off and add antifreeze to our system during winterization. We have more information for that in one of our other videos. You'll also see a single blue line over there. That single blue line is to drain out your freshwater tank. Now this is where we would fill that freshwater tank. We'll start with that. We pull this cap off right here and we hook a water hose up to it and we can fill that fresh tank to whatever level we want it. We can monitor it by our panel on the interior that we'll go over after a while. But this is for if we are dry camping. If we don't have a city water connection wherever we're camping at, we will fill this up prior to our trip. We'll have water in that system and we'll kick our water pump on to take the water out of that fresh tank and supply it to our fixtures. Now you only want to bring what is needed because this does add extra weight to your camper, and whenever you're not using it you want to drain it out so you're not carrying that extra weight and so the water doesn't become stagnant from just sitting inside that tank. In order to drain it out, that's where that single blue line comes in place. You turn that valve and drain out that system. Here is our furnace. This is a gas operated furnace. Whenever you kick it on from the inside, this blower will turn on and exhaust the gas heat out of there while it heats the interior of your unit. We'll notice under our slide out more towards the rear, we have a second connection for our sewer hose. This is a secondary tank for our gray tank. This would be for our galley area or kitchen where our kitchen sink drains into, And same thing, we can leave that open all the time. As long as we have that hose hooked up, we can shut that valve off when we don't, and it can accumulate until you're ready to dump. We have our slide out right here. This is a 12-volt powered slide out. Cable slide identified by our cables here at the bottom and top on each side. This system operates off of a 12-volt switch on the interior. If you want more information on that particular slide out, we have that in the helpful hacks section of our playlist on YouTube. Here we have our storage compartment that leads into our back bedroom, and here we have our Furrion tankless water heater. This is an on-demand water heater system that will supply you hot water while it's operational. No tank or anything like that. On-demand tankless water heater. We'll go over the operation of that when we get inside. Here we have our 50 amp twist lock plug. This twist lock plug can only go in one way. Once you have it inserted, quick twist to the right to lock it in. And then we have our retainer ring that we want to lock in there. That way that cable doesn't come out and cause any arcing. To pull it out, pull that retainer ring off, quick twist to the left and pull it out. Now, one thing we want to remember about our power cable is we don't want to hook it up while appliances are on in our camper, mainly our AC system. If that system is on, it will cause some arcing, it'll cause some surge on that system whenever we go to plug it in our park cable. We also want to make sure we plug this in first and then go plug into our park system. On the rear of our unit, we have our backup camera system already on our Astoria here, and down at the bottom we have our towing system. We do have a 4-way plug for lights, and we have our receiver hitch for our tow hooks to be able to tow something behind us. Now, this is rated for a certain tongue weight on here, so we need to make sure that we're double checking whatever we're towing behind us to make sure it's in the proper rating. We also have a factory supplied ladder back here to be able to have access to our roof. This is important because we need to check our roof for any cuts or scrapes or anything we might get when we go camping. Tree limbs hang low, they can mess up that rubber and open up any spots in there causing damage. We need to make sure we're checking it after trips. We also need to make sure we're checking our sealant on our roof around all of our vents. And we also need to check our sealant on our trim, our lights, our windows. All of that is considered customer maintenance. This needs to be checked every 60 to 90 days. This is required by the manufacturer. Otherwise, it will not participate in any water leaks on your unit if it is not properly maintained. This is like changing the oil in your car. It's a regular maintenance that you need to do on your camper in order to keep it in good working order and not allow any water leaks in it. So make sure you're checking all of your sealants on your roof, sides, windows, everything every 60 to 90 days. On the passenger side of our unit, we have our secondary propane tank right here. We have our pass-through storage. We have a little light switch right here that controls the lights in that pass-through storage. We also have that Go Power solar system right here. This is our controller for the solar panels to charge our batteries on our unit whenever we do have sunlight in order to do it. We're also under a 12-volt powered awning. This awning is a sunshade, not a rain shade. So in the event that it starts to rain or we have high winds, we need to pull that awning in. If you're leaving your camper for an extended period of time, you want to make sure you roll that awning in because you never know what may happen. Now, we want to do that because manufacturers do not participate in any damage due to neglect in any rainstorms, windstorms, or anything like that. That will become an insurance claim, so we want to make sure we take care of our awning properly. We also need to make sure that we are pitching our awning. You will have some AC runoff from the condensation up there that may end up on our awning, any light dew or anything like that. In order to do that, we just pull down on our arm and we tighten this knob right here. Now, we can do this on the front or the back of our unit, whichever you prefer, and we just need a slight tilt on that awning for that runoff to come down and drip off the edge of our tube. Whenever we are ready to store our awning, we want to loosen that knob and allow that arm to come back up before we roll it up. We also have our 12-volt lighting up here that is provided by a switch on the interior, and we have our outdoor speakers as well. A few more things we'll find under our awning is our mount for our TV, our 110 receptacle, and our cable. This is all for that outdoor TV system. We can hook our cable up to it and get antenna channels or cable. Here we have our outdoor dorm refrigerator in this compartment. This is a 110 operated refrigerator. Anytime you plug your unit into 15, 30, or 50 amp service, that refrigerator is going to turn on. Now you need to be mindful of that because it does have a freezer section in there. It is going to cool, so that means we're going to end up with water, condensation, whatever in that little fridge. When we store our unit or when we unplug it, whatever, we need to go in that fridge, make sure the freezer has defrosted, and we need to clean out that extra water that's in there as well as any condensation. These are airtight gaskets, not watertight, so if that water defrosts in there and drips out and gets onto these wood panels in here, it is going to damage that system. So you need to make sure that you clean that out properly, defrost it. This is also going to help prevent any mold or mildew from occurring in that refrigerator. Manufacturers don't participate in any wood damage due to a lack of cleaning out that fridge. Above me, we also have our vent right here. This is for our stovetop vent over our 3-burner stove. We'll go ahead and click 2 buttons on there and open that vent when we want to use the exhaust on there. When we are storing our unit, we want to make sure that is latched closed so no rodents or insects grow any nests inside. This rail is for your outdoor stove or griddle, whatever comes with your unit, and you also have a quick connect LP system right here under it that leads to your propane tanks in the front in order to operate that grill or griddle. Here we have our LCI stabilizer jacks. These are what I mentioned in the front with the landing gears. We'll run these down and touch the ground, and we want to put a little bit of weight on them, and that's it. We don't want to try to level our unit with these, meaning we don't want to try to lift our unit. That's what our landing gears in the front are for, and our stabilizer blocks under our tires. These are simply to stabilize your unit. If you put too much weight on them, they will bend and break and not be covered under warranty. There is an override for this. So here we are back on the driver's side of our unit opposite of our motor in and our switch, and we have this handle. We can see this handle has a little slice in it, and it will line up with the post on that jack. We line it up and we can manually run that jack up and down if we need to. Here we have our solid steps. Our solid steps can be stored in our unit by lifting them up, locking them into our frame. We can see we have a blue latch right here. When we put them up, we want to give it a little tug and make sure that it's latched properly. We don't want that falling out while we're traveling or anything like that. When we're ready to bring it down, we pull that blue lever and lay them down on the ground. Now before we pull our steps out, we want to make sure that we have our unit level. Once we have our unit level, we pull our stairs out, then we want to level our steps. That can be done by looking right here on the back rail. We have a little metal tab sticking out. We push in that metal tab and we can adjust our step legs. Now, easy to do when we set our steps down. We can get them level where we want and just pull that tab and those steps will slide in and out like that, and we have our steps level. This is very important not only for the safety of going in and out of the unit, but when we close and open our entry door, we don't want to catch this rail on the outside with the bottom lip of our door. This will damage it if you don't have it leveled properly. We will also notice on that entry door, it is friction controlled, so you're going to find some resistance on that door. This is to help control it from the wind slamming that door closed or anything like that. Here we have our control center for our slide outs, our awning, and all our other components here. Now, if we notice, this is the scale right here that we talked about for our fresh tank. We can monitor that water level as we fill it. We also have for our black tank and our 2 gray tanks right here what those current levels are, as well as our battery. We have our interior lights right here, our exterior lights for our awning lights, and this is the water pump. In order to initiate the water pump to pull from that fresh tank to our faucets, we would go ahead and hit that button right there, and that would turn that on. Now, if we're hooked up to city water, we want that water pump off. That way we're not fighting against each other. And here we have our awning to run that in and out, and same thing for our slide out. All 12-volt control components. If we have any issues, we can go to our fuse panel to check the fuses in here. This is also capable of being connected to your Bluetooth on your phone. We can download the Lippard Connect app and we can Bluetooth it to our system and control some of these components from our phone. You're also equipped with your Jensen radio system. This will also control those speakers on the outside as well as the speakers on the inside. You have your standard AM, FM, Bluetooth, and our HDMI ports right here that we can hook a cable into for maybe a gaming system or something. And on the back side, that HDMI will run to our TV. Everything else is standard controls for your system. That zone A and B will control outside speakers and inside speakers. Just before we enter our steps into our hallway, we have our breaker panel and our fuse panel. Breakers for our 110 components are here. Our 12-volt components are here, and they're all labeled as to what they control. If we have problems with any of those components, we want to come here first and check that system. To the right of it, we have our COLP detector. This is to alarm us of any toxic gases in our unit. We want to test it by holding down that button. Do that once a month to make sure that chirper works. These do have an expiration on them, whether they're printed on the front or if you unscrew it, they might be printed on the back. Every 5 to 7 years or so, depending on the brand, these will need to be changed out. We want to make sure that we're checking this regularly. The green light on this one indicates obviously it has power. It is a 12-volt controlled component. In our living room area, we have our max air vent fan. Operate open and close, fan off, fan on with 4 different speeds. This will control that vent in the kitchen. Pretty self-explanatory there. We also have our Furrion AC system as well as our Furrion tankless water heater. We'll go over the operation of those two. Here we have our thermostat for our Furrion air conditioner system. To turn it on, we'll hold down that power mode button and our display will light up. And the first mode that we're going to talk about is our cool mode. Just like your AC at home, we're going to set our temperature, and we have a variety of fan options. We have auto, we have low, and we have high. Auto will turn that fan off whenever the compressor turns off, much like you want at home. If we want that, we want it on auto. High or low will keep that fan running all the time, whether that compressor is on or off, and it will continue to circulate air throughout our unit. Our next mode is our heat mode. This is for our gas furnace. Our gas furnace will initiate when it hits that set point, and the air is going to come out of the vents in our floor, not our rooftop air. Once that system has reached its set point, the system will turn off. There is no difference in the fan speeds on here. There's only one fan speed on a furnace, so pushing this button isn't going to change anything for your furnace. Fan. Fan is just going to circulate air throughout your unit. It's not going to cool it. We still have those options for high and low speed for that system. Our next mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode works as a dehumidifier without freezing you out of the unit. It will cool the unit down to the set point that you have it, so in this case 71 degrees, and it will alternate running and shutting off to try to help keep the air dry inside your unit without reducing that temperature down any further. When we're ready to shut that system off, we hold that mode power button on and that system will shut off. Below it, we have our Furrion water heater system. We have our power indicator light right here. That means that system is on. If we want to shut it off, just hit that button one more time. We can see that every icon on here is off. Turning that system on will display everything. Of course, we have our set temperature right here. To reduce or increase that temperature, we'll hit our arrows on the side and it will set in. F and C right here represent Fahrenheit and Celsius for our temperature reading. If we want to change it to Celsius or Fahrenheit, we hit that button right there. We also have a flame icon right here. This will indicate when that water heater is actually running. So if we turn our hot water on, that flame indicator is going to turn on and that system is operational. To turn our system off, once again, we hold down that button right there and it will shut off. Now our bathroom is pretty cut and dry. In our shower area, we do have a safety travel latch right here for our glass doors. We want to make sure that that's initiated when we're in travel so there's no damage to our doors whenever we're traveling down the road. Now our shower is pretty normal. We have our on and off for hot and cold right there. Now our shower head has an on-off button on it as well. We would use this when we're dry camping. We're trying to conserve the amount of water we're putting in our gray tanks as well as the amount of water we're taking out of our fresh tank. And this makes it more manageable. So we can go ahead and just quickly kick that button on or off and shut off our shower head, and this will stop the water coming out without us having to use our faucets right here. We go ahead, we get wet, we turn that system off, and then we lather up, and then we turn it back on. We're ready to rinse off. Now another thing this does is this keeps you from having to find that sweet spot for the hot water on your valve again. But I will warn you, whenever you turn this on, that first quick shot of water is going to be a little cold, so you might want to turn it off to the wall. Besides that, no need to do that if you're hooked to the city water, because you're not worried about conserving any water during that period. Now we do have our RV toilet right here. Our RV toilet works just like you want at home, except you have a foot pedal. You're going to hit that foot pedal to flush that system down. Difference is, we're not going to put anything but RV toilet paper in our system. This RV toilet paper is going to decompose properly and be flushed out of your tank. If you use anything else, it can cause problems with your plumbing and your tank. Big thing that we need to know on here also is that we need to put chemicals in our toilet whenever we are storing our unit, or after every time we flush out our system. Then we want to drop some chemicals in there to go ahead and treat that tank. If we're using number one, we're just putting liquids down here, we can just flush it right off the back. If we're doing number two, putting solids down there, we want to hold that pedal down just a little bit to where that valve, that ball valve at the bottom, is still kind of closed off, but water is coming out, and we want to fill that bowl up about 3/4 of the way. That way we have enough water in our bowl to actually flush those solids down into our tank. If we don't do that, we're going to cause some issues. So make sure we're filling the water to the proper level, RV toilet paper only, and nothing else in there. No feminine products, anything like that, just RV toilet paper and the stuff that we're supposed to put in. Over here we have our GFCI controlled outlet. This GFCI controlled outlet is our main outlet that controls outlets in the wet locations. So let's say our outside outlet by our outdoor TV, or outlets in our kitchen, or this outlet here in the bathroom. The way that works is we have a little green light on here indicating that that system is on and operational, and you have two buttons on here, a reset button and a test button. That test button, if we push it, it will trip it. This works just like a 110 breaker. When we hit that test button, it trips it out and it cuts off power to all these outlets that are in GFCI controlled. After we hit that test button, we can hit the reset button and it resets and sends power back to all those systems. For whatever reason, one of these outlets isn't working due to they got wet and it tripped that outlet. Or you put in too many griddles or heating components, too many coffee makers, whatever, it overrode that component and it tripped out that system. If those outlets aren't working, come here first and hit that reset button and see if your system comes back on. You may have to unplug some of the components that you have plugged in before you reset that system. You're also going to have a fan vent in your bathroom. It is suggested that you go ahead and run that whenever you take showers in here to help reduce moisture in this area, to ensure that you don't have any mold or mildew over time. In our front bedroom, we do have a second AC system, and we have our second Furrion thermostat right here that's going to work just like that one in the living room area. Now we do have a vent up here. This vent comes down. We'll see we have a filter. This filter needs to be cleaned out every so often to make sure it's not restricting the airflow on our AC. We'll notice that we have a dump valve here. It's going to be very similar to our one in the living room area. This dump valve, if we have this AC running, the cold air will just come out of here and cool this area. If we want it to run through our ducted air vents like this, we want to close that valve off, and then the air will just come out of here and not out of here. And this will help circulate air throughout your entire unit. All these ducts are connected together. Same thing in your living room. In our storage right here, we have our hookup for our washer dryer if we add that in here. We also have our WineGuard LTE 4G Wi-Fi system. This hooks to our antenna and it can help boost the Wi-Fi at the campground, or it can also give us cellular Wi-Fi service if we went to one of the cellular providers and got a card to put into that router system that we would have to upgrade to. So you'd have to purchase a router, pull this cover off, and install it on there. In order to operate that system, we would come to our little panel right here. This is where our coax is and our backer for our TV, our 110 plug. You'll see two switches on here. These switches are on and off, indicated by the little green light. Green light means it's on, green light off means it's off. So there's a button on here for Wi-Fi. If you hit that button, that is going to turn on that Wi-Fi router system if we have it installed. The other button on here is for our antenna boost. Our antenna boost is when we're searching for air channels. We don't have cable hookup, we don't have satellite. We are searching for air channels on that TV. We want that antenna boost on in order to pick up more channels in the area. Now, if we are hooked up to park cable, we want the antenna boost off. The 12-volt boost will scramble the channels coming in from the campground, so we want to make sure off for cable and on for antenna. In our living room area, we do have our TV, our, once again, air channels. We want to control all that stuff through our switch in the bedroom. If we want to search for air channels, turn that switch on. If we want to search for cable, turn that switch off. We have our 110 fireplace right down here. Let's go over the operation of that. Here we have our fireplace. We have a sensor right up here in the top right. We have to aim that remote at to turn it on. We have our Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature we can change to. And right here, this little flame icon is going to change the dimness of our flame. If we want to change the lighting of our flame, we hit the light bulb on the screen down here at the bottom, and it'll give you some different options right there. If we want to operate our heater on a timer, once again, electric heater, it is going to be this button right here. It looks like a clock, and when we push it, we can see some times pop up: 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, all the way up to 8, and then it will go to 0 hours, letting you know that that timer is off. If we want to change our temperature, we'll use one of these two buttons at the bottom, and we can see once again we have a temperature down there, and we will go ahead and raise it until it kicks on, or lower it, we want it to kick off, or we can keep going until it says on, and that heater will stay running all the time. We kick it up one more time, and it's going to say OF, meaning that that system is off. In our kitchen area, we have our standard microwave. We also have our stovetop vent. Remember the vent outside we talked about? We have to open whenever we use this one. 12-volt fan and light right here to exhaust out of our unit. We have our glass top over our 3-burner stove. We want to make sure that whenever we travel, we'll have this glass top down. Whenever we want to use it, obviously we have to flip that up. Now we have a 3-burner stove right here, gas operated. Now before we use any of our gas appliances on our unit, like our water heater or our furnace, we want to make sure we come to this stovetop first and we get all the air out of your LP system. We end up with air in our system when we store our unit with those valves closed on the LP tanks, or if we've changed out our tanks, we're more than likely going to end up with air in our system. So I always tell customers, when you first come out to your campground or you're prepping to go, you want to come to your burner, identify what burner you're going to use, and just click it and light that stovetop. Now it may take quite a while if you have air in your system for that to purge out, and you just keep clicking until it lights, or you can use a long stem lighter, one of the two. Once it lights, you want a nice clean blue flame on the stovetop, no popping, cracking orange flame. This ensures that you have good LP flowing all the way through that system. Usually takes about 30 to 60 seconds to ensure that you have that. Now for your oven down below, even though you've bled all the air out of your system, it's going to take a little while to light it for that first time. So what we want to do is open that up. We'll come to our oven and we turn to that igniter mark right there, and we have to push that knob down to initiate the gas flow on that ignition. Once we do that, we can either choose to use our lighter knob right here or get that long stem lighter, and we light that pilot. Once the pilot is lit, we want to hold that button down still for another 30 to 60 seconds, and we're warming up the thermocouple in there. Once that's warmed up, then turn it to your desired temperature. That burner tube should light up at that point. If it doesn't, we need to go back to where we started, go to that flame icon, relight that pilot, hold it down for another 30 seconds, and then try to light that tube again. This means that that thermocouple was not warmed up enough just yet. We also have a light switch on here that will light it up blue, and it will also light up our stovetop. If we switch it to the other one, we see some red indicators on these rings that indicate that that knob is active and there is gas flowing out of that system. So that's a good little warning to let you know, hey, it's active if you're not using it. Here we have our 12-volt Furrion refrigerator and freezer. We'll notice a knob right here that can turn that system either cold or colder or off. Now, after we use our system, we want to defrost our freezer, get any ice, water, anything that remains in here defrosted and cleaned out. We want to clean out any moisture in our box down here as well. This is to make sure, number one, we don't have any mold or mildew occurring inside our refrigerator and freezer, and it's also to ensure we don't have any standing water that can leak out of this fridge and damage those wood components around your fridge, just like the one outside. Once again, airtight, Gaskets on here, not watertight. Make sure you are defrosting these refrigerators and getting all the water out. Not much to go over here in your bunkhouse area. You do have a jackknife sofa that can fold down into a bed, lifting the bottom, pulling it out to pick it back up, pull that back cushion, pull the bottom, and fold it back up. We do have a telescopic dinette table. Pull those handles right there and we can drop that table down, and it will sit on the bumpers around our dinette booth and provide us another sleeping area. Once it's dropped down, turn those two latches, lock them in, and that table will lay flat, and then we can add some cushion right here for another sleeping spot. To get it to come up, pull those latches, and it is spring loaded. They will come up, and we lock them in. If these are ever get loose, we can go ahead and unlock them and tighten that knob up right there in order to make it tighter.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.